All right, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Decoding Online Offline Quote to Cash with FieldFX. We are happy that you've taken the time to join us today. My name is Emily Rhodes and I'm the Director of Marketing at Liquid Frameworks, and I will be acting as the moderator for our webinar today. First, we'll start with some housekeeping notes. We've muted the phone lines on our end to avoid any interruptions during the presentation. We will, however, allow time for a short question and answer session at the end of the presentation. So if you have a question, please enter it in the chat section on the right-hand side of the screen, and we'll be sure to answer it at the end. If we don't have time for all of the questions, we'll be sure to follow up with you personally after the webinar. Next, I'd like to introduce our speakers. Joining us today, we have Travis Parigi, CEO and founder at Liquid Frameworks, Kenny Pishu, VP of Finance at Keane Group, and Justin Gerard, Senior Solutions Engineer with Liquid Frameworks. Today, we're exploring how to effectively manage quote-to-cash processes digitally, even without an internet connection. We'll explore how FieldFX uniquely solves this problem and hear firsthand how the Keane Group has benefited from their FieldFX implementation. Finally, we'll see a demo of FieldFX in action. And with that, I will turn things over to Travis.
Well, thank you, Emily, and thanks to everyone who joined us on the webinar today. We're excited to talk to you. I'm especially excited to talk to you about the quote-to-cash process with FieldFX and all the great things that we do here at Liquid Frameworks. And a special thanks to Kenny Pishu at Keane for taking the time to tell us a little bit about how they've been using the product as well. So appreciate everybody's time. I thought I would take just a couple of slides and spend just a minute or so to set the stage for who Liquid Frameworks is and the market industries that we serve. Liquid Frameworks started this company back in 2005, and we have been focused since then on just a few industries: the upstream and downstream oil field service provider market and industrial service providers, as well as emergency responses. And our customer base consists of a lot of companies across the mid-sized to very large-sized companies in those industries. They all deal with very similar problems. A lot of problems out in the field at well sites and refinery sites that are very unique to those industries. And we have spent the last 14 years building the FieldFX product with extremely domain-specific functionality in it that serves to solve those problems in a very unique way. So today, I thought that we would take the time to go through that overall process, so the quote-to-cash process, if you will, and all of the sub-processes that make up quote-to-cash, and talk about the problems that we see in that particular process, as well as the solution, and the solution obviously being FieldFX. So if you look at that process and workflow in detail, you see that it consists of about 5 high-level major workflows that we deal with. And the first that we really look at is setting up the complex pricing rules that are inherent in the oil field and the energy industry in general. From there, we're going to go into quoting, so being able to generate quotes both online and offline. So we find a lot of times that our field salespeople and sometimes our field engineers, they're out at a site. They might be at a refinery site doing the tank cleaning, and the unit manager may ask them to, hey, can you quote me another job? And in that case, they may or may not have connectivity. So there's some unique things to do with respect to quoting in the field, converting those quotes to actual jobs and dispatching and scheduling those jobs to the right people with the right equipment and certifications on time and on budget and on spec. And from there, moving into field ticketing. So field ticketing in the space that we serve is unique and somewhat complex because of the fact that it's a very disconnected nature, very disconnected process that we have to deal with. So out in the field, you may or may not have internet connectivity, and that lends to a number of different problems. And then we'll move into invoice creation. So based upon field ticketing and the pricing and the quote and making sure that we're compliant there from an invoicing perspective, and doing that all in an electronic world. So most of the time you see that there are very manual, paper-based, Excel-based problems to solve this historically. So why would we go through all this? Because as you might imagine, there are a lot of moving parts to getting something like this rolled out. Well, as it turns out, there are quite a few benefits on both the service provider side as well as the operator side. So the operator being your customer, so the customer of our customers. And those benefits, I'll just highlight a number of those here. These aren't all of them, but there are quite a few things that we find that our customers are able to reap from deploying a system like FieldFX. And obviously, one of the big ones is reducing DSO. So being able to get paid quicker, so lowering that time that it takes to get an invoice created and paid, an accurate invoice is a huge part of it. Our customers find that their customers are demanding that they do business electronically, so moving to a much more automated digital process. And so that customer stat goes up just from being responsive to customers, not to mention being able to provide this data electronically through the FieldFX self-service portal, for instance, or other types of direct integration through APIs and whatnot. And then you also have a lot of ability to reduce errors, reduce labor. There's a lot of duplicative process that takes place in a paper-based world. So by moving to an electronic world, you also reap a lot of benefits from there. But on the other side of the fence, on the operator side of things, it takes a lot of time, obviously, to process invoices manually and also process paper-based or PDF-based invoices. Those things can be riddled with errors and non-compliant pricing. And when that happens, that takes time from somebody on the operator side of things. They've got to kick it back. And when it gets kicked back, obviously, we're restarting the clock from a DSO perspective, not a DSO perspective, but from a terms perspective. And so that really impacts and elongates the DSO process. So it becomes costly not only to the service provider, but also the operator. So, and we want to make sure that we're charging for everything that we can charge for as a service provider. I mean, these contracts that we have in place, they're quite complex. And many times our field engineer, our field operator, or technician, they inadvertently leave things off of that ticket and or quote. Well, that's money that just disappears from the bottom line. So we want to make sure that we're recapturing for that type of unbilled item. And we've seen customers that have had unbilled items on the order of anywhere from 3 to 5 to even 8%. I mean, that's just money that disappears, and we can easily recapture that in an electronic world. So staying with the problems and benefits, we see in our industries that we serve, there are a lot of characteristics that lend themselves to a lot of problems that we've got to deal with. And so just the nature of where we're doing the work, at a well site, at a refinery, at a location that may or may not have connectivity, and that leads to an offline workflow process that we've got to do. The whole manual Excel paper-based side of things lends itself to a whole litany of issues as well. There are things like rogue pricing. So you have salespeople that they may or may not know the exact pricing. They may not have constraints on them. And in those cases, you end up with some issues around margin assurance. It's really hard to maintain margins if you have a sales team that's out there quoting things not necessarily by the book. So we've got to solve those types of problems as well. And really, to do all these things, to achieve these benefits, well, we really need to start with a baseline set of master data and functionality. And that functionality and master data, we provide FieldFX and its set of modules to provide that and to achieve that. And so this is just a quick highlight of all the different modules that encompass the FieldFX suite. And I won't go through all these. We're going to demo a number of these today. But instead, what I thought I would do is just drill into one of the most core aspects of the system. It's really the spinal cord of the system, and it's the master data and the pricing data specifically that is used to make up these complex contracts and MSA agreements that are used to do almost every transaction in the system. And so if you look at these data concepts, and we start with catalogs, which is a list of non-priced items, services, and products and supplies that we use to deliver our jobs, but we move those things into price books. And those price books are standardized ways, standardized documents that track more than just the pricing. It's tracking discounting, it's tracking what we call CPQ rules. So they're the mechanics. It's a way to model the mechanics of these price books and the rules that we have set up with our customer. And we see that a lot of these price books are customer specific. So in this case, I've got one for Cirrus Oil, and it's for frac work that we do in the Bakken. And you'll notice that that price book, it's used to proliferate all of its data across all three transactions that are being created off of that price book. So we have a quote, a ticket, and an invoice. And you'll notice in this very simple example that's kind of geared for PowerPoint that we've got just a few attributes that carry throughout. And so we end up achieving what we call a four-way match. And by doing that, we're able to ensure that we generate a contract compliant invoice that's based on a contract compliant ticket, quote, and price book. So by doing that, it eliminates any type of rogue pricing, rogue discounting. We increase the cash flow because we're reducing DSO, since we're able to get this very accurate, very timely invoice out the door. And so obviously that's going to increase customer sat. But if I drill in a little bit further into the way that we see some customers modeling this type of pricing, a lot of people take it to an even more enterprise level where they have what are called hierarchical price books, and sometimes multiple hierarchies. So it allows us to do what I call a multi-price book transaction. And so in this case, I'll just show you a quick example of how this works. In this case, we have two hierarchies. We have customer-specific MSA-based pricing that's shown here on the left for Cirrus Oil, that starts at the Permian, starts at a specific basin, and then it goes up to their HQ level pricing. But we also have list pricing over there on the right for our service provider, Parka Energy Services. And so what you're seeing here is that we've got a customer that has specific pricing, and then there's also our list pricing. So if I was going to go price, let's say, a sonic logging service, in this case, the way this demo just worked is that it is showing you that it starts in the Permian and looks for pricing for that customer in the Permian, and it doesn't find it there. If it doesn't find it there, it hops up to the HQ level pricing for Cirrus Oil. It may not find it there either, in which case our salesperson still needs to quote that sonic logging service, and our customer certainly still needs the service delivered. So we want to be able to jump over or hop over to our list pricing and start at the bottom at the basin level, and then move up to our U.S. land-based pricing. And then if we don't find it there, we go up to corporate list pricing. So you can see what I call multi-axis pricing in this case taking place. So a lot of interesting things that we can do with pricing. I'm not suggesting that you have to do it this way, but this is simply one way that we see customers do it. And so once we get all those pricing components in place and we've got this nice flow that can move electronically, if we drill down deeper into the job to invoice creation, job completion to invoice creation set of steps, what you find that we can do is we can generate that invoice in a lot of cases in one day. So we call it same day invoicing. So the day that the job completes, we can get that invoice out the door because we're able to sync up that data from the field, get approval of that ticket. It's already a compliant ticket because it's based on the price book that we've already negotiated, and it's electronic. And then boom, we can auto create that invoice and get that out the door as well. So in order to do all that, obviously we need to have moved away from a paper-based process that looks a lot like this. I mean, these are probably familiar to a lot of people, and where we're capturing manual type of operator stamps. And we need to move to this type of an example where we're doing that ticket electronically in the field, capturing the signature electronically, capturing the stamp electronically from the operator, and doing it all with no network connectivity. So 100% initiation of these transactions from start to finish with no network connectivity. So what do I mean by that specifically? I'm specifically talking about starting a quote totally offline from scratch, converting that quote to a job totally offline, so that job is created from scratch offline, and then initiating the ticket or tickets that need to be created against that job from scratch without connecting. And then from there, getting customer signature and approval and proof of delivery, and actually eventually syncing it up and cutting the invoice from the back office. So doing all that stuff offline, even the invoice coding piece, specifically around the operator stamp, we've got to be able to do all that, and the proof of delivery, be it signatures, be it immutable geolocation, could be the operator stamp, whatever the case may be. You've got to be able to do all those things offline from the internet. So If we can achieve all that, then we can take it one step further, and we can even take operational data related to assets that we're working on, and we can layer that into the EAM side of things, so the asset management side of things. So we've already got our field engineer out there collecting data related to quantity, maybe data related to usage, to generating a field ticket. So in this case, we're servicing a compressor, and we're sending that data already to accounting to generate the invoice transaction. Well, while we're getting that out there, why not take just a little bit more time and ask our field engineer to provide us some information about the connection joint threads and the socket corrosion status of that compressor that they're working on. So in this case, they may indicate that those joint connections are damaged, and when that happens, the next time that field engineer syncs, we can take that data and we can multiplex it not only to the accounting finance side of the house, but also to the operations and maintenance side of the house, so that we can start generating preventative work orders. Maybe we're generating corrective work orders. I mean, whatever the case may be, but we can take that data and do things with it from a maintenance perspective. So that's a huge benefit when you layer all this stuff into a single holistic solution. You really end up with something that provides a ton of benefits. So that's really the whole process that we're going to go through today and show you a lot of highlights of that process from an end-to-end perspective, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. So again, I certainly appreciate your time, and I'm going to turn it back over to Emily.
Thanks, Travis. Yeah, thanks for providing us with that overview of the whole end-to-end process. Next, I'd like to give the stage to Kenny Pichu from Keane Group. Kenny, can you please tell us a little bit about Keane and your experience with FieldFX?
Yeah, so thank you, and thank you, Travis and Dave, for giving me the opportunity to speak today. Just a bit of introduction. My name's Kenny Pichu. I'm the VP of Finance for the operations for Keane Group. I have a slide here I'm going to start off with just to tell you a little bit about us. We are a public company. We're traded on the New York Stock Exchange. You can tell by our ticker what our core business is. Our market cap's about $1.1 billion. We are one of the largest pure play providers of completion services, mainly frac and plug and perf wireline, and we are present in all major basins. Today our fleet exists. It's about 1.4 million hydraulic horsepower. We have about 3,000 employees. And for us, our core values that we live every day are safety, efficiency, and partnership. I'm going to talk a little bit about the efficiency in the partnership side, because that's what FieldFX has kind of brought to us. So on the next slide, why FieldFX? Just get my okay. So first of all, we embarked on this journey in late 2016. The problem statement we were trying to solve is we needed to professionalize our well site field ticketing. And through this journey with FieldFX, we also realized that we need to professionalize and digitize some of our operational metrics, some of our delivery and performance attributes. So we obviously looked at a bunch of different suppliers. The one that we selected was FieldFX. It is an all field services developed product. Some of the technology has been around for a while. It's proven and trusted. For us, the offline capability was probably the most important thing. Today, we work in all manners of regions and locations. Sometimes we cannot connect at all to cell towers, any kind of connectivity. So that offline capability was key for us. And sitting here, after a year and a half into the journey, I can really count on one hand how many times we've had an issue with the offline capability. We were able to sync when the guys get back to the man camps or to the hotels, and by the next morning, we always have our data available for our morning reports. Another thing that really fit into our kind of roadmap from a systems perspective is the fact that FieldFX is built on the Force.com, which is the Salesforce.com platform. And from our sales teams all the way to the engineer and the data van, all the way to my team that are doing the billing, There's basically a seamless link between your CRM, where you're managing your customers, and your operations, where you're managing your operations and your ticketing, and then the finance, which is doing the invoicing. So for us, it was a natural fit because we had already embarked on our Salesforce CRM implementation. The system is set up around, or at least we utilize it as a job setup. So for us, once we win an opportunity or we're going to embark on a new pad or well, we set the jobs up in Salesforce. That gives us visibility on schedules. That gives us visibility on being able to assign pricing and well design, and then that feeds into the whole system. So the job setup for us just was a really good fit, being an oilfield service company. For us, as I mentioned, we are public. We did go public in early Q1 of 2017. In 2018 was our first year of SOX compliance. This product, obviously, going from spreadsheets and unsecure type billing at the well site to a completely secure environment for us was really big on SOX. We did very well on our revenue testing this year, and this product has allowed us to be able to do a lot of those things. And finally, Travis mentioned it, but I wanted to spend some time today on not just the field ticketing part. We actually use FieldFX as an operations data capture point. We actually did a customized platform, if you will. We co-developed this with the Liquid Frameworks team, and we're able to actually capture the performance of each one of our individual fleets. We're able to see what they're doing on a daily basis. We're able to benchmark their performance. We're able to compare across the fleet. So we actually implemented the operations part first. I'm going to go in that on the timeline. But, having that flexibility, like Travis mentioned, and holistic flexibility, I should say, where, you have your operations and you're managing certain aspects of your operation, whether it be scheduling, equipment, people, maintenance, having that in tune with your field ticketing software into one platform is my opinion, it's a very good thing to do, and we've been able to do that with the product. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, so just really quickly on the project timeline, we were embarking on with this product to do field ticketing. Once we got into it and working with the team, we realized that we could get a lot of value out of the operations data capture part. So we developed that first. We prioritized that as a phase one. We started doing all the job creations in Salesforce. We did this customized development, which I mentioned earlier, which is our operation timestamp. And also we developed, which is a kind of a core part of our value system, where we really value the voice of the customer. And we have scorecards where after every stage, on every job of every day, the customer rates us. And we're able to capture that data, and we're able to show it back to them in different forms. I strongly believe that this has been a key enabler for our efficiency. This year, we've had a very strong run in 2018 on enhancing the performance of our fleet, and having that visibility and understanding what everyone's doing every day and where we're falling short and where our clients are falling short, and be able to feedback that to them has been very valuable for us. So that took us from kind of September-ish of 2017 through March. We were able to implement that pretty quickly. Then we embarked on phase two. Phase two was our field ticketing part. For those that are planning to embark on this, my advice here is, hopefully you're using Salesforce. If not, the tool works with other systems, but luckily we are. So it took some time to get all the pricing and all the master data from your customers and all the well designs into the system. If you can imagine, we have a lot of different services that we build. We have a lot of different contractual in commercial terms with our customers. So it was very complex. And what Travis showed earlier, there's a lot of flexibility in the tool, both in Salesforce and in FieldFX. So that was a big lift doing that. You can imagine we had to kind of get our sales team to catch up on a few processes, but at the end of the day, we pulled them into it, and it's made us stronger as a team. From there, we went into the field ticking configuration. We were able to do special configuration for our requirements. We did the testing, and then we actually went out to the data van where we bill our clients on almost every single well site, and we rolled it out. So that's in play today. Our field ticketing is electronic. We have approval checkpoints in finance. We have approval checkpoints at the beginning on the contracting side. It's all electronic, and obviously, the professionalism that I mentioned earlier. Our clients can sign on a pad. They can use electronic devices to attach stamps. So we've literally changed the game when it comes to going from spreadsheets to electronic field ticketing. One other thing we're working on today, which is a product of the data that we're able to get, is we have a revenue forecasting tool. We have our schedule in the system. We have our revenue pricing and jobs in the system. So we're able to actually do a revenue forecasting tool, which is coming out shortly. And then the other one is we have started to pilot the people and equipment tracking tool that's in FieldFX. And we have started with our cement business, which is a smaller part of our business. And we actually have been running one of our largest regions with the tool in terms of assigning people, assigning pumps to jobs, and actually running the job bonus, which everybody in oilfield service knows is a pretty heavy process. We're actually doing that all in the tool as well. So from start to finish, to be honest with all of you, it took us about 15 months. I think we were thoughtful in our approach. We probably could have compressed it a bit, but I think we did it right, and we're seeing the benefits today. Next slide, please. So the final slide, I think this is kind of where the rubber meets the road. I mean, we partnered with Liquid Frameworks. It has been a partnership. I firmly can say, and I'm not paid to say this. I'm just saying it. We have had top tier support from their team. David, Mike, Brady. These guys have been with us from the beginning to the end, and they're still with us today. And I can tell you, we probably haven't been the easiest of clients to deal with. We're pretty demanding as a group, but I think at the end of the day, I think that we did get a very good product, and I appreciated from the beginning till today the support of the team. We do have better visibility on our performance. As I mentioned earlier, I strongly believe that this visibility has led us to enhance our fleet efficiency, making us more competitive. On the field ticket side, for those of you that are dealing with oilfield services and well site billing, today that in order to accurately bill at the well site, you have to have pricing, and you have to have quantities, and you have to have items that you are going to bill. And not everyone has access or the knowledge around all of these different commercial agreements. By having a electronic field ticketing software such as FieldFX, all the guys and gals have to worry about is quantity. The pricing is brought in, it's secure, it's based on that job, on that commercial agreement, on that client. So not only administratively is it less burdensome on the field, but it is also more accurate, and is also keeping your data and your pricing more confidential. I did mention about SOX. Our auditors obviously loved the fact that we are moving to the system. And as Travis mentioned earlier, we were pretty fast on our billing. Cash is king, and we have a very low DSO overall. However, we have been able to speed our time to billing and to invoicing, and it has increased our invoicing accuracy. the last thing I want to leave you all with is, we were able to actually take the FieldFX system. We were actually able to tap into the data that's available on theforce.com. We linked our BI tool to it. We use Tableau. And I put a couple examples on there where you can see the data that's coming from our OTS log. And you can see there, you can see graphs, you can see bubbles. Everyone likes to see data differently. So in addition to the reporting tool that FieldFX or Liquid Frameworks has designed, we actually enhance that experience by plugging it into a BI tool. And what we're doing today, actually, now that we have the billing data, there's a lot of very rich data that you can rub together from an operational perspective, from a scheduling perspective, from a revenue and quantity billing perspective, that actually enhances the visibility on your business. So just wanted to throw that out there for those that are about to take this journey or on the journey already. There's a lot of enhancement you can do by plugging in a BI system, because then you can actually link to other parts of data of your organization. So in summary, I guess I'll just leave you with this. We went through a pretty intense selection process on the supplier. We're very happy with the product that we have received and the support that we've had through the journey. And today we're still enhancing our experience and our visibility on our business with the tool. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kenny, for sharing the Keane story on the webinar today. We really appreciate you being with us. Next, I'd like to hand things over to Justin Gerard. Justin, why don't you go ahead and walk us through a demo?
Great. Thank you, Emily. And thanks for joining us today. So in this demonstration today, our quote to cash demo, we'll start off playing the role as sales, and we'll play many different personas just to give you sort of a day in the life of an average service provider. And the sales person will fill out a quote. They'll answer numerous questions that will drive items onto the ticket using our CPQ module. And then a field manager will get a notification that a job has been created as a result of a bid being awarded by the customer. The field manager will schedule that job, the crew and equipment resources, and then the field technician will synchronize their tablet or laptop. They'll complete any sort of electronic forms, their daily field ticket, and last but not least, of course, an electronic signature from the company man as well as the technician. And that'll all happen offline. Once we have an established connection, we'll then synchronize back into the back office, where accounting can then pick that signed ticket up, review it to make sure that all the coding is accurate, and then they'll ultimately either invoice directly within our system, and then if they have integration with their ERP, they will simply create that invoice and post to the general ledger inside of their accounting system. And last but not least, of course, the ability to show, from an executive standpoint, full visibility into the business and overall dashboards and reports holistically across all business lines. So let's just get right into the demo. Okay, great. And so what you're doing here is the back office console. This is typically accessed by someone in sales, operations, finance, and this is just simply a website. And they can come in here and they can create a FieldFX quote, and you'll see a sales dashboard is showing activity, revenue, bids won versus lost. So a salesperson might be interested in those types of metrics. And from a security standpoint, it's a roles-based security model. And so the administrator controls the level of access for each group of users, and every field is reportable. And that goes from all the way from the quote to the job, any sort of ancillary forms, tickets, etc. And all of that is immediately reportable and also able to be leveraged against for any sort of third-party integration with any EDI tools.
And Justin, I just want to quickly jump in here and note that even if our customer extends the product with any special custom fields that they may have beyond the scope of our standard fields, those are also reportable and integratable and immediately available through the API and the reporting engine.
Great point. And so what we'll do here, we have a quote already created. So we'll go to this Q584 quote. We could also create this offline directly in our mobile application. And the first thing you'll see here is a visually appealing screen, and it's guiding you through the quote. And so if I go into the details, you'll see that we're doing this quote out of the Houston office for a fictitious customer called Cirrus, but we're utilizing the Cirrus Houston Price Book 2019. As Travis mentioned earlier, we have a price book hierarchy that exists where Cirrus might have a global price book that exists that also has sub-price books or child price books that extend into the actual geographic region. And we can actually have our users fill out certain information based on the guidance for success here and sort of walk through that process for their salesperson. So what we're going to do first is we're going to actually choose our job type. So we'll choose, for today, we're doing a wireline service. We're doing this for the North America geographic area. And then I want to go ahead and save that. And I want to mark that stage as complete. And when that stage is complete, it might automatically, for instance, kick off a notification to someone that's listening there to see exactly which geographic region is affected. It might also be driving items directly onto the quote, etc. And oh, sorry about that. And so the next thing that we'll do is we'll fill out our true vertical depth. Our vertical depth in this case is 15,500. What is the actual measured depth for this well? That's 16,000. And then last but not least, what's the expected bottom hole pressure of this well? Our customers told us that it's 275. And we'll hit save. And as soon as we do that, you'll notice that in the item grid directly beneath that it's automatically gone out and added a number of different items onto the quote. And why is that? Because we've met specific conditions that reside within the price book rules, it's automatically driving these items onto the ticket so that the salesperson doesn't have to go into the price book, search for these items, and manually add them. We know that since we're doing a wireline service that requires a wireline operator and that we're going to charge mileage for that wireline truck. We know that based on the vertical depth and the bottom hole pressure that we're going to need a high temperature charge, extreme condition charge, and a high pressure test pump. On the right-hand side of this grid, you'll see this threshold where it's showing the yellow and green. That's a way that you can actually put guardrails in that can guide your salespeople to where they're getting expected margins on the items and services that they're quoting. And so management can actually put in place these guardrails and can dynamically change those, whether it's overall on the quote header has to be above a certain margin percent, or at the individual line item has to be above or below a specific margin threshold. And so a person can come in here and simply change that price. Let's just say that that's going to be $580 now. And so we'll save that change. As soon as we do, everything is updated automatically. We're in the green and we're good to go. If we want to add any additional items, I can simply search in my price book item searcher. We know we need a man lift for the day. So I can simply select that item, say we need one of those, and then simply add that selected item directly to the quote. And we can do this and build up our quote and build up our proposal. On the right-hand side, we have all of our well details, any margins that we're trying to hit, or certain KPI metrics. And all along while it's doing this, ultimately it's generating a PDF quote that is can be formatted to be identical to your company's proposal or quote, along with electronic signature. So they can actually click in, they can sign this, they can do that from our mobile application, or they may choose to simply send this quote through our customer self-service module and have the quote automatically be signed in the portal. Once the customer is awarded the bid to Cirrus, what we want to do then is, instead of having to give a piece of paper to someone to have it re-input on the screen, we want to simply take all that information and have it only input once. And so we're going to simply click this Create Job button. And what that's going to do is actually go out, get all the information from the quote, and generate a job, a ticket, and also add the items to the ticket based on the quote. And that's highly configurable for each customer. They can choose whether they want to automatically create those or not. You'll see the notification that a new job has been created. And so what I'm going to do then is go into that job to view certain information about it. And all along, operations is then receiving a notification. So they've been notified that they've been awarded a job. So what I'll do now is switch personas and play the role as someone in operations. And as soon as I do that, you'll notice the dashboard completely changes. Now we're viewing an operational dashboard that's showing utilization of crew, utilization of equipment, which certifications are expiring coming up, returns on assets, etc. So we'll go into this job Q584, and now we need to simply enrich the data. So the salesperson's done a fabulous job of capturing the initial details from the client. Now we need to simply enter in some other key information for invoicing purposes. So we need to put in the AFE number, and we have a PO number from the customer, and any other fields that you might want to include, of course. And we'll go ahead and save that.
And that data could, of course, come from the ERP system if they wanted to integrate it with maybe a master file over there for invoice coding.
That's exactly right. And really, all of the master data will come from either your ERP, or it could, of course, come from a number of different ways, through Excel or CSV automatically, or directly from your accounting system. And so once we've done that, what we need to do now is simply schedule our crew and equipment resources. So I'll click Schedule and Dispatch, and this will launch our Schedule and Dispatch module. And our Schedule and Dispatch module is highly configurable, allowing each dispatcher. We realize that each dispatcher likes a certain unique view. So you'll notice, of course, right off the bat that we have conditional coloring. So you can color certain things a color based on, for instance, maybe it's the number of weekly hours that a person is accrued throughout the week. We want to make sure that we're assigning resources that meet, number one, the qualifications, which I'll get into in a second, but also if they meet the same qualifications, we don't want to have to pay someone overtime when we have someone that has 17 hours sitting on the couch at home, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hover over this Q584, and what I'm going to do is click that job, and it's going to go out and it's going to automatically look at the requirements of the job. That might be on the well site, or it might just be based on who the customer is. But in this example, we know that any people that work for Cirrus must have a safety certification. And we know that any equipment that's to be used must also have an annual inspection. And so it's automatically filtered our people and our equipment by that exact criteria. Now what I can do is simply click these placeholders. And this is great because these placeholders were automatically created as a result of the needs that sales put in the quote. And so now someone from dispatch has been coming in and simply filling in the gaps. So they know they need a wireline operator and a high temperature pump or a high transfer pump. And so I can simply click this wireline operator and further filter my list down by who exactly out of my list of people meets that criteria of being a wireline operator. And so in that example, we'll simply add Brady over there. And I might also add myself. And now we need to simply add our piece of equipment. And so I'll filter my equipment down, and we see that we have 2 pumps here that are valid. If we had any maintenance events that were being done on any of our equipment, they wouldn't be listed here if we didn't want them to, or they might be colored a certain color. So then we can simply drag and drop our pump directly onto that, and as soon as that placeholder has resources scheduled to it, it turns green, good to go. From there, our field engineers are receiving the notification that they've been assigned to that job and any other pertinent information that they might want to include. And so what we'll do then is go back into the job, and we can then say that it's ready for scheduling, and ultimately, let's dispatch this out to the field.
And you can auto transition that as well based upon resource planning placeholders being populated. So for instance, if you had 3 placeholders and a couple of equipment placeholders, once those resources had been populated, that job could be auto transitioned to ready for the field, as opposed to you having to go into it manually and transitioning. I mean, it really depends upon the requirements of the customer.
That's exactly right. It could certainly meet specific criteria for the job, and when it meets that criteria, it automatically changes that status. Definitely a good point. And so now that we're now in the context of our HTML5 mobile application, and this resides outside of Salesforce. This is our own inherent application that works directly with back office. And from this point on, we're operating completely offline and away from the internet. And so you'll see that we just synced a few minutes ago. This is a bidirectional sync. We also have auto sync, which you'll see at the end, which can automatically upload all of our data back to the office for processing. And so what I'll do here is click on jobs to see my list of jobs for the day. So we have 3 jobs. We're working today on this Q584. And the first thing that we're going to do is fill out a form. And we need to simply fill out a JSA when we get on site. You'll notice we have all sorts of different forms at our disposal, and our customers have the ability to go in and create and configure these forms as need be.
So these forms are really customer specific. They're not coming pre-configured like this. It's really exactly to the spec of our customer.
That's exactly right, Travis. So we'll take that form, we'll simply transform that digitally into FieldFX. We'll add that form, and then of course we need a sign-in sheet of who was on it. So Travis, you were on it.
In most cases, these forms are extremely quick to build. It's all what's called declarative setup inside of the platform, and it takes a matter of hours to set up a new form. At least that's been my experience with it.
That's exactly right. And so then we can generate a JSA document that looks similar to your document with as many electronic signatures as there were people that attended that safety meeting. So Travis signed off on that. I'll sign off on mine. And then if we have access to a printer, we can print that on site. We can also expose this to the customer self-service portal. But what we'll do is simply attach that to the job packet. And that will be one of the documents that syncs back when the auto sync kicks in at the end. So I'll go back into the job, and I'll go to tickets. And the great thing is the ticket has, in this case, been created for the day. If we wanted to, for instance, if we were doing this job day in and day out and we required the same items, we could hit this button right there on the right to simply copy that ticket and all of the items that reside in that ticket for the next day, so that the user isn't having to go and add the same items all over again.
But in this case, the ticket's been auto-created for us based upon the conversion from the quote to the job and the scheduling of resources and whatnot. You're just going to enrich it.
That's exactly right. And so from the back office, we didn't want to capture the geolocation of John, who is dispatching this out, but we've gone out and provided a proof of delivery by capturing the geolocation of my actual location when I created that ticket.
And talk a little bit about the geolocation operating offline.
So offline from the internet, as long as the device supports it, the geolocation can go out and actually capture the device's lat long directly within the application. You can report on that and even plot that on any type of map as a proof of delivery method for your customer.
Doing that based upon the GPS device.
Exactly right. And so what I'll do for today is go into items. We see we already have a number of different items on the ticket that came automatically over. And so I can then simply place this in bulk edit mode and simply change or add quantities. In this case, I wanted to manually fill those out. So let's say 65 miles for the day, a 2-day charge on that operator, and a high temperature charge. Now what we want to do is we want to add items that maybe weren't originally quoted. So the customer, or the company man rather, comes over and says, hey, while you're here, can you do X, Y, Z? Great. So we'll place this out of bulk edit mode. We'll hit the plus. You'll see we can add items that were originally quoted, but what we want to do is simply go into the price book. And so you'll notice that we can view all the items that reside in the price book. Our field user, though, is not able to see the pricing unless you, of course, give them the ability to do so. And we want to make a new run for this. So we're going to click Run, and we're going to simply click this green plus, and up pops certain questions. So just like we did for quoting, we can then leverage our CPQ module to guide us through the process. So we're just simply asking questions here, right? What type of service is being performed? We're going to say that it's a simultaneous gamma ray logging. The bottom hole temperature, we'll say, is 175. The well depth is 15,500. And the well pressure is 1,500.
And we could carry that over from the job level if we wanted to, but in this case, we're collecting it again at the run level in case, so that we can show that those numbers can change run to run or stage to stage.
That's exactly right, Travis. And we've named that run 1 in this case, and I'll simply hit the plus, and that item was added successfully. Furthermore, what we would want to do is maybe while we're there, the customer asks us to pick up something at a supply store. We want to also add a miscellaneous item because we don't want to simply add those items to our catalog. It's not something that we typically stock in our warehouse. So I'll close out of that, and you'll notice based on the answers that I provided, the pressure, the depth, etc., it's automatically gone out and added my gamma ray depth charge, my op charge, based on the depth of the well and the work that's being done on it.
So basically, you answered just those handful of questions about the run or the stage, if you will, and it's dynamically on the fly building that entire package for that run based upon those answers, coupled up with the CPQ rules that the administrators have modeled inside that price book for Cirrus Oil.
That's exactly right. And so this miscellaneous item, we can then go into this item. You'll notice now this one does have a cost and a price on it. And why is that? That's because we give you the ability to, within our price book management, to further describe this item. So we'll say this is a flange nipple and that the cost was $27.50 to us. We could even say who the vendor was. We can also simply attach a file, right? So we can actually attach a picture of the receipt at the time that this was bought from the supply store. So I'll simply choose files, and I'll attach my receipt directly in line with this miscellaneous item. And it's applying a markup. So you'll notice that anytime we use a miscellaneous item, that it's automatically applying a 25% prearranged markup percent to this item.
So we could think of that as a cost plus item.
It's a cost plus item. So I'll hit the check.
The markup percentage is configurable all the way down to the item level, item type, a whole variety of different ways that you could have it determine the markup percentage. It could be a markup hard dollar amount too.
That's exactly right. Good point. We can then go to ticket logs, and for those customers that want to track their day-to-day activity more granularly, such as NPT, they can, of course, do that. They can customize these lists. They might simply choose NPT, and once they do, they are then forced to and required to fill out, well, was the NPT our fault? Was it the customer's, et cetera? So we'll say it was third party from 145 to 2. Great. And we can enter as many of those as we want, and this is all reportable again. We can, of course, attach files, so any type of pictures or video up to 2 gigabytes, we can attach those files. Maybe it was an incident that happened on site, and then we can sync that back to the office for safety concerns or any HSE. Last but not least, we can then click on reports, and up pops the Parker Energy field ticket that we're doing for today for Cirrus, along with customer signatures, but also the ability to embed a customer stamp. So we can actually click on this right here. We can take a picture of a stamp being stamped on a blank piece of paper. The company man can fill that out and then simply attach that stamp and embed it directly onto the field ticket.
So if you were on an iPad or on an Android tablet device that had an embedded camera, instead of attaching it as a file, you simply would have had that operator stamp the white paper, fill it out, and take a picture of it.
That's exactly right.
Just doing it like this because we're on a laptop today.
Yep, that's exactly right. And so I sign it, the company man signs it. This could have been done completely from customer self-service if we wanted to, if the company man wasn't on site.
And it's important to note too that this particular ticket format, layout, look, and feel that Justin's showing for this fictitious Park Energy Services, that's totally changeable and configurable. It's just a matter of making it look like our customer's field ticket with all the appropriate fields and data points and branding and all the things that make it unique. So this is just a sample template.
That's exactly right, Travis. And I'll hit the check, and that'll be another document that'll sync back. My ticket's gone automatically to complete and signed status. And so now what I can do is just simply hit the FX icon, and we'll see that FX auto sync is kicked in, and all the changes have already been synced back. So no longer is the field guy waiting to have to go there and manually press that button. We've instituted that automatically as soon as we realized that there was an internet connection. So all of the processing from the back office, any notifications, can then go out and be processed from there. So once we then switch gears, last but not least, very quickly we'll switch and go into accounting, where then accounting would receive a notification. They would view the tickets that are signed. They of course only want to process tickets that have been signed. So they can pull up that list right there. We see that ticket that we just did. It's complete and signed. We can of course view the items, any logs. Historically, we can, from an auditability perspective, we always know who changed what field from what value to what value. So from a compliance perspective, we always are able to report on that. We can send it back to the field if there were any errors or any invoicing coding requirements that weren't met. But ultimately, we can then approve that ticket from an ops perspective. And then last but not least, we can then approve that for invoicing. And then that can either automatically create an invoice inside of FieldFX for invoicing, or that can simply send an entry over into the general ledger of your accounting system through integration. And while we have a few minutes left, I'll turn it back over to Emily.
Okay, thanks, Justin. Let's move quickly to Q&A. If you have a question, please enter it in the chat section. We'll try to get through them. I know we're getting close on time here. If we don't get to your question, we will follow up with you afterwards. Okay, how do we decide which mobile devices to use with FieldFX? Laptop, tablet? Travis, you want to take that one?
Sure. So the question is deciding what devices to use. So there are a variety of choices. FieldFX is designed, from a mobile perspective, FieldFX is designed to run on any of the three major platforms, Android, iOS, or Windows. And so it really depends on what the customer might already have. So if they've already got a fleet of laptops, which a lot of times is the case that we see, we don't want to dictate that they go out and also buy a bunch of iPads on top of those. So if they've already got those, that works fine. If it's sort of a greenfield and they're ready to go into the tablet world, then certainly Androids and iPads are a welcome choice, simply because you have so much nice embedded hardware on those platforms, like the embedded camera, which works really well from an operator perspective. So I would say that it runs on all platforms. So I would just want to take a look at it on a case-by-case basis and see what they already had and make a determination that way.
Okay, next question. We have several different service lines. How can FieldFX be set up to support us?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we deal with that every single day. So we have very few customers that only run one service line through FieldFX. Most of our customers are doing about a dozen service lines, and so the product is specifically designed to handle that. So it's extremely configurable, extremely extensible. If I get technical on you for a little bit, I mean, there are things like record types and page layouts and profiles and something called sharing settings that segregate data across different groups of people, even down to individual people, that can be based upon criteria. It can be based upon the organizational structure of the company itself, something called the role hierarchy. So with all those different ways to configure the system, you absolutely can support multiple different types of product lines and service lines that can behave materially differently from each other. So one service line might have a very simple workflow. Maybe it's just a scenario where they're selling parts, or they're selling, let's say, lift equipment out in the field, but then you may have a very different process from a wireline perspective or from a cementing perspective that might entail cement slurry calculations, or from a fracking perspective could be very different. Maybe a drilling consignment, drill bit consignment service line would have a totally different process. And so not only can the process be different, but even the look, even the field set that gets collected from the end users, that can be radically different from service line to service line.
Okay, well, I see we're right at 2 o'clock, so I'd like to thank everyone for your time today. Just a quick reminder that if you'd like to stay up to date with FieldFX, be sure to follow Liquid Frameworks on Twitter and LinkedIn. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Kenny, for your time today. Have a great afternoon.